Hello, and welcome to the Vicars Watch Dibley,
the podcast where three priests link our stories to those of a Reverend Geraldine Granger Kennedy and other TV vicars. I'm Kate.
I'm Jenny.
And I'm Ruthie. Today we're looking over everything. We've come to the end of watching the Vicar of Dibley. We've been to see Dawn French in her show, so we talk a bit about that. Jenny can't quite contain herself still, and we just talk a bit about what we've learned from watching the series and what the future of the podcast is.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Hello. That was very musical. Hello.
Do you know what? I think today is going to be a singing episode because one thing I learnt when we went to see Dawn French is that I burst into song whenever I'm super happy and excited. I just can't stop singing.
You are a living musical, aren't you, Jenny? Yeah. When the emotions get too much, you burst into song.
I do. I didn't know it, but there we go. That's true. So a very musical hello.
I was worried you were going to float off a few times as well. It's kind of like I grabbed onto you thinking, she's going to float away.
I pretty much did, to be honest. We're going to get into that in a minute. Surely we have to. Or shall we get into it now? I mean, what else have we loved? Is there anything else? Or is this the only thing we're going to talk about this day?
I think this is the thing we've got to talk about.
Everything pales
so what
in
have we
comparison.
Loved? We've loved going to see... Well, no, can I just break it down? Can I just boast for a second?
Yeah,
can I just drop
Please
all
do.
humility and, like, you know... When, you know, the last time we were here, guys, Dawn French was on the podcast. Let's just take a moment.
Was she? I can't remember that at all.
She was here.
Chat to Dawn French.
Her presence was here. Her spirit was with us. She literally was here. And during that episode, it wasn't put on the final edit, but she actually invited us to go to London Palladium to be on the guest list to go and see the play. Now, I'm not being ridiculous. We were honestly in such fab seats, right in the middle, clear view of Dawn before us, just being in the same room as her, as if that wasn't enough. But then afterwards, to go and have a little Prosecco, to be, you know, in a place where there were other people excited to see her, celebrating the charity that she was involved, what they were doing. And then when she comes into the room, as if it hadn't been enough to be in an auditorium with her, suddenly there she was. I mean, I think the first time that she came into the room, she was about 2 or 3 meters away.
Yeah, and she acknowledged us and she said, I'll come see you later.
She did.
Yeah.
And she did. And she did.
And she did.
It was just... It was just absolutely insane, wasn't it?
And we had some really wild encounters, I think particularly... when we first got to the theatre, to the Palladium, and we met Ruthie's friend, really randomly, was there.
Shout out Becky.
Yeah, Becky. And she was like, oh yeah, and said that someone had mentioned they'd been listening to our podcast.
Yeah. And I know who he is. We got a message from him. So hi, Mark. Thanks for shouting about us at the Palladium, that you sent a message saying, I hope you had a good time. And we did. It was amazing.
So, it was so good.
Yeah. I'd never been to the Palladium before.
And the show is so funny as well, isn't it? Yeah, the Palladium's gorgeous. And the show itself is absolutely hilarious. So I'm going to slightly modify the language, but Dawn French is a huge twit. Absolutely. I feel sorry for you, Caitlin, because I was literally next to you going, ha, 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 the whole time. But it was so funny. I cried, I laughed, I whooped. Like, oh man, if you can go and see it, it's really good. I think 12th of October is when the book is out as well. So don't want to be obsessive, but it's one to watch and one to read for sure.
And what I hadn't realised, Jenny, is you didn't realise that we were going... Well, we were initially going backstage, but then this charity event was happening and we got invited to go and hang out at that and mingle with other people who were like, oh gosh, I recognise some of these people's other celebrities. And there was us in the corner, busy chatting to other people. And there was that lovely lady we met
pretending
as well,
like we knew what we were doing.
Who was one of the techs for the show and was off to do The Lion King. And we went and chatted to loads of people. And there were loads of... people on Instagram who are also kind of fan accounts of Dawn, and we met loads of you guys, so it was lovely to meet you. And us being there and going, I don't think we quite fit in here, and then meeting everyone else and going, oh, cool, we found our people. This is all good. So
absolutely amazing. It was a genuine dream come true. So yes, I think that's one thing we can agree of what we've all loved this week. I mean, I announced it in church on Sunday. It's been the only thing on my. Actually, someone else did. There was another priest in my village was leading, and he said, right, everyone needs to make sure they talk to Jenny about something amazing that happened on Thursday night. And if people weren't my Facebook friends, they'd have been like, what? What's going on? What's going on? So I had to talk about it. Obviously, highlight of my blooming life.
I used it as a sermon illustration.
Nice.
Oh, yes. How did you get it in there?
So because my mission project is welcome, and I was visiting a different church in Medina on Sunday, so I was talking about welcome, but also I felt that the readings from Jonah and the workers in the vineyard from Matthew, you could also use them to talk about welcome, which is what I did. So,
very good. Hospitable landowner welcomes the workers. And gives them all a denarius.
And makes them feel like they are everyone is of equal value, which is what Dawn did. And actually, I really want to give a huge shout out because Dawn has this amazing gift of making everyone feel like you're on a level with her. And partly for me because she's only a little bit taller than I am. So
yeah, not height-wise, but
literally on a level. But also, actually, it would have been so easy for us to be there, and there's a couple of Hollywood stars in the room, and she could have, just said, oh, yes, hello, and then moved on to the more important people. But she really made us feel like, not just like we were important to her, but almost like we were her collaborators, which I really loved.
She was very, very hospitable, wasn't she? Very generous.
That's what God does in the kingdom of heaven.
I like that. I see the parallel between Dawn and the Lord. This is where we're landing, isn't it? Because let's face it, actually, this is a bit of an end episode. I mean, for those of you who are about to get your hankies out, don't worry, there's something amazing coming. But actually, this is a full stop in the Vicars Watch Dibley journey. And there's a change here, and we're moving away from what we have been doing and moving into pastures new. So it makes sense that actually this is the episode where Dawn and the Lord come close parallel.
So Jenny, as you said, we reached the end of this particular Vicar of Dibley journey in that us systematically watching the Vicar of Dibley episode by episode, analysing it and reacting to it, responding, talking to each other about it. That's coming to an end. So in this is a bit of a sum-up episode, really. We're tying things together, tying the end of our season
epilogue.
1 together. So I want to ask both of you and myself and all our dear listeners, how has it been, especially if you've been rewatching with us, how has it been watching the Vicar of Dibley in this way? I think for us revisiting it and deliberately watching it as vicars, but maybe our listeners as well, you gained new insights.
One thing I want to say that I'm really pleased about is rewatching it hasn't killed it for me. You know, when you if you did English Lit or media studies or something like that, and you rewatch something or reread something and totally analyse it for different stuff, it could just mean you go, oh, I just hate that book now. I've never ever want to read that again. But that's not been the case for me with Vicar of Dibley. I think there's definitely episodes that I prefer, and there's been ones where I've been like, okay, this one isn't as great, but I would never go, I can't watch Vicar of Dibley ever again now because I've just watched it too much, which is a bit of a relief, really, because it could have gone the other way.
Yeah, well, because so many things, especially stuff from the 90s, from decades, comedy from a few decades ago, doesn't age well, always. I think we found out when we watched that Father Ted episode,
Monty Python,
the pod as well. And when we watched Life of Brian, comedy, which is really good comedy, doesn't always age particularly well. But I never experienced that with the Vicar of Dibley.
Some bits, but it wasn't as bad as others.
Yeah. Yeah, one or two bits, but not as jarring in
Yeah.
the same way. What do you think, Jenny?
Yeah, no, I definitely would agree. I think that something that came out, which Dawn kind of spoke about, but we've definitely touched upon, is how the episodes are like comfort blankets for people. And actually, when you're just having a rest day or a lazy day, or I think she spoke about some people that were recovering from cancer or like going through really bad times of just bad seasons of life or recovering from being poorly, that they would go to it as something to watch over and over again. So it's not just us nerds who watch it in order to make a podcast again, but actually it's like one of the nation's go-to programs for something that's like a probably classic British, but also absolutely funny, warm, welcoming, and it's just got goodness and love shining through it, I think. Yeah, so it's been an absolute joy and pleasure to rewatch. And yeah, I mean, you know, as I come back to time and time again, Geraldine Granger is, you know, one of the first women vicars that we had. So actually learning from her again has been a nice thing, and comparing our ministry to hers and bringing out the similarities, laughing about the differences and everything in between has been, yeah, a spiffing journey, quite frankly.
Do you still have the same kind of go-to episodes now? If you were going to go watch an episode or two with Vicar of Dibley, like, oh, I've just got, you know, an hour, half an hour, I could go watch, you know, a little something. Would the episodes that you kind of go to change, do you think?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Thank you. I just thought of it.
I think mine have.
Oh, what would you say yours are? What were they and what are they now?
I think it used to be Holy Holy Happy Ending. I think that used to be the one that if I was going to rewatch Vicar of Dibley, that's what I would go to. I think now I would go for Animals, definitely. Maybe Window and the Weather.
Yeah, that's a great episode.
On Animals note though, again, I got a message from social media of someone in Adelaide, Australia, saying that their local cathedral was doing an animal service and that they thought of us in the podcast.
That's so great.
So if you're around Adelaide, then there's a service going on very soon. Go have a look at the cathedral.
That's amazing. Actually, well, I've been inspired as well because I'm doing my first pet blessing service in a couple of weeks' time.
Are you?
Yeah, it's a tradition my church used to do, but I've never actually done one before. So that should be hilarious.
Please tell me he is wearing his bishop regalia.
Who, my dog Henry?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I hadn't thought of that, but I better dig it
Please.
out, yeah.
Put him in his bishop outfit, please.
And just have him with me while I lead. Okay, I'll give it a go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant.
But I think, so rewatching Vicar of Dibley has been lots of fun, but there's also been some really difficult parts as well. I think there's been parts where maybe the episodes have hit a little bit harder than we were expecting, but also I think the process itself was quite tiring. I think I'll really enjoy going back to watch a Vicar of Dibley without having to take notes and without having to pause it every few minutes, every few seconds to write something down.
Yeah, your brain, Caitlin, has been a blessing to this podcast because I'd never watch something and then go, oh, imagine if it ended like this, or I would never let my creative juices bring up like alternative endings or like ask the next question, whether you've always been so good at thinking like, oh, well, what would happen if there was a different ending or something like that, which is actually, that's been really interesting for me because, yeah, that's kind of opened up my mind in a positive new way. But I can imagine that's been tiring at times as well.
It's more, I'm as you will have realised, if you listen to the podcast, I do tend to really delve into the, I enjoy things. I do enjoy trying to work out what hymn book for hymn numbers point to, etc. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to not necessarily feeling like I need to go and do that research.
Yeah. Making time for sermon
that
prep or
said,
something instead.
I'll probably just continue doing that with what the stuff we're doing next.
Rock and roll.
So.
The one thing, though, that we have still yet to do is to go to where the Vicar of Dibley is filmed.
Yeah.
I would really like to do that. That's something we haven't done yet. So watch this space for updates on that.
Yeah, it was nice seeing one of the people we met at the show as an Instagram account called Jen and Dawn Titting About, which is a great account. Go follow them. And she went with, I think her mum came over. They're from the States. They came over. It's nuts. And went to the village and took those pictures. And I was like, oh, we need to go.
We definitely need to go. Yeah.
And it would be nice because we realised, going back a few conversations, that when we were in London together, that was the first time all three of us had met together since before starting the podcast. Like, it's nuts how much we've done this separately and in different places. And I've seen both of you in different ways, but not all three of us together. So, yeah, we need another adventure out together. Be good.
Yeah. And totally. We're not completely done with Dibley. Let's just say that.
Never.
Yeah, it lives on in us. We're literally walking Dibley people, so how could it ever fade?
Yeah.
Yes, because we've learned lots from Dibley, and I think one of the things we wanted to talk about to kind of sum up our time together is what is one thing that we've learned from watching Vicar of Dibley, from Geraldine's ministry, that we've kind of taken into our own ministry and the stuff that we've been doing as vicars in the real world. Kate, should we start with you?
Yeah. So the thing that Geraldine has taught me about being a priest is to be unashamedly yourself. And I think the first time I watched Vicar of Dibley, the first time round, or maybe the first time I watched it while I was training for ordination, I was really embarrassed by Geraldine. And I remember playing the game, spot the pastoral mistake. Because I just kept thinking, oh, she's doing everything so badly. She wasn't. But I think just realising actually it's okay to be yourself. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the super priest. You don't have to be artificially holy. You can be who you are. Enjoy your personality as God has made it, as long as you're not overindulging the worst parts of your personality, and enjoy your interests as well. You're allowed to have non-church interests, and enjoy the friendships that you build along the way as well. So,
I love that.
Because I think related to that, people think that priests and vicars should fit a mould still. And just looking up there, I can see a picture of people we trained with at college and just going, yes, there is a type of mould that's still there. And I mean, I'm seeing quite a lot of white faces up there and, certain background and education standard and that kind of thing, which you're kind of forced into being part of clergy. But actually there is diversity in there as well. And there are different people and different likes, dislikes and understandings of things. And to be truly yourself and be the priest that God called you to be. Because I don't think God said, Ruthie, I want you to be a priest and have a complete personality transplant.
Yeah.
No way.
I want you to be a priest, but you're going to have to completely change and change how you look as well.
Yeah.
And change how you speak and all of that. And actually, no, that's not how God works. God calls us to be ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think we can see that in the show. I think we see Geraldine has been called to this place to be her. And over the course of the show, we see that flourish.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Jenny? What lessons, well, apart from lots of your personality and loves and likes and singing has come from Geraldine, what's the one thing that you have learned?
Yeah, very true. So, loads of my intonation or the speech that I think, or the things I think of, the speech that I use, that intonation range, it's all Geraldine. It's quite embarrassing, really. But the thing that really shines out to me, the one thing that I've learned from Geraldine that I really take away and treasure and come back to time and time again is her genuine love for her people. And I think this marks the number one gift of being a priest or a shepherd to your people, is that you need to actually and genuinely love them to live a life where you translate to them the love of God. And what I love about the Vicar of Dibley is it's not beautiful, it's not glamorous, it's so hard and it is costly and it makes your heart break, but it also leaves you in stitches as well. And I don't know, I think being on the inside of some of those relationships, when we look at, we've talked a lot about Geraldine and Alice and how their relationship grows and blossoms, and, some seasons where it's harder than others, of course, that's just the nature of any relationship. But I was talking to a vicar, listening to a vicar preach recently on God's stubborn love for people. And I think that's something that...
Great line.
Isn't it? Yeah, God's stubborn love, like unrelenting love. And that just comes across and shines in Geraldine Granger's ministry, which is fictional, but it's the best of like what it should be. So I think, that stubborn love, that lasting love, which makes and endures you to ride the highs and lows with people. Even if they're totally on another planet, even if they're boring, even if they're sour, even if they're rich or poor or somewhere in between. Watching Geraldine do that has been, a great blessing and quite inspirational as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because love is such a difficult thing to do as well. I have written in various places that my job is to love people and love God. How hard can that be? And the reality is very hard a lot of the time. And, loving God can be difficult because sometimes you can feel disconnected from God and far away, or frustrated or angry, or just questioning God's existence and all this kind of stuff. And people are even more difficult to love sometimes, and they do things to hurt you, and they mess things up, and they irritate you. But if you've ever loved someone, and that's not just romantic love, I'm not just talking about that, I'm talking about friend love and parents and siblings and neighbourly and all this different kinds of love. Love goes through trials, doesn't it, and ups and downs, and sometimes you might not like a person, but you choose to love them, and that's a really difficult thing to do. And it's a difficult thing to do to your congregation as well, and loving them even when someone might have sent you a snarky email, or loving someone when they're having a tough time and there's nothing that you can kind of say or do to help. Or love is a big word, isn't it? For well, a small word for a big thing.
Yeah, well, and especially I think our culture trains us to assume the worst of people. I think in terms of when someone is behaving, I don't want to say badly, but behaving in a way that upsets you or disconcerts you or concerns you, our first reaction, which we've been trained to have, is to think, this person is horrible, they must be a terrible person, they must really hate me, they must be doing it deliberately to me. Whereas actually, the reaction we should be having when someone is behaving in a way that causes us worry should be worry and love and compassion, and saying, what is happening? I know you are not like this because I love you, and you live in my heart. Therefore, I want to know how I can help you for what's causing you to behave in this way. And I know that, if you're really stressed and the way you exhibit stress is to be really short with people, then actually, if I approach that with love instead of suspicion, I recognise that you're not being deliberately rude or cruel, you're actually overloaded, and maybe I need to offer to, share some of that load with you, to give you more capacity. And there's something about, instead of responding in suspicion, responding in love, which I think just modern living doesn't encourage. When I first moved to Doncaster for curacy, I really noticed in myself, just sort of walking around the area I was in, feeling more suspicious of other people, gathered around. I shouldn't feel suspicious or see a group of young teenagers and think, oh, what are they up to? Are they going to jeer at me? Or are they up to no good? Actually, we should be able to, being sensible and recognising true danger where it is, we should be able to actually embrace each other with love. So I try to encourage people to assume the best of each other. And I hope that means we recognise better when people truly aren't behaving well in ways that do actually need to be challenged. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm now thinking about Emma, though, and Mr. Knightley coming along and going, badly done, Emma. It was badly done indeed.
For anyone else that doesn't get that reference, I am with you.
It's a Jane Austen.
Jane Austen.
I'm sorry, everybody.
Come on, Jenny.
For the uncultured among you, I am with you.
But we see it play out in Vicar of Dibley, though, don't we? With, I think, particularly the character of David Horton.
Yeah.
Where both he and Geraldine learn to assume the best of each other.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really, I think that is one of the highlights of the whole show, is seeing someone who is unreservedly Geraldine's opponent from the first episode, actively seeking to undermine her, by the end being one of her greatest supporters. And that's because of hard work that was put on both sides. That didn't happen easily.
And that's not going to change both their personalities at all, particularly. You know, it softens some of the edges that they both need softening. But, you know, David's always going to be a card-carrying Tory, landed gentry, all this kind of thing. And Geraldine's going to not be those things. And, you know, them learning to love each other and live with each other doesn't mean that, you know, well, David does sign up to be a member of the Labour Party.
I was going to say, he does change for one episode.
But as we see in that episode, it's not a good idea. It's not going to work for him. So you can love people with difference. And I think that's something the church needs to learn as well, again, because we can so quickly kind of get our little tribes and fight our little battles against each other and go, you're my enemy, and, you know, you're doing things wrong and you're ruining the church and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, people on all sides of different arguments do this. And actually, how do we disagree with love?
Yeah. So, Ruthie, what have you learnt from the Vicar of Dibley?
I think I wanted to reflect on making mistakes. Because, and it was interesting that Dawn talked about this, about the need for Geraldine to be a flawed character, that she was too nice, and actually realising that, you know, we are all flawed characters. We're never going to be perfect priests because, you know, the perfect priest is Jesus, so we're not going to be that. But actually we're going to make mistakes, but it's how we make mistakes. And how we recover from them, apologise for them, and actually sometimes it's perhaps not a mistake, but we'll do things that people disagree with, and either we need to stand by them, the decisions that we've made, and stand firm with that, or change our understanding and hold up our hands and say where we've messed up. But I think it's mistakes and conflict, that this is always going to be a part of, well, life, ministry, everything. And how do you deal with that well? And Geraldine tends to do it with, you know, standing by her morals and knowing her reasons why doing something. And if she does something wrong, she apologises. It might not be in words. It probably should be in words. But it's often in action as well, because actions are quite memorable. So, like the Celebrity Vicar one, where she gets Darcy Bussell in, and things like that.
Although sometimes her words do follow after several hundred chocolate bars or a couple of bottles of wine. There's always a process, isn't there, before you get to the point of transformation or apology.
Absolutely.
But,
definitely.
There's a version of the show that doesn't exist but could have existed, and Jenny, I'm going to do what you like me to do. There's a version that could have been written where the first female priest on TV was perfect and without flaws, and she was the long-suffering straight man, as it were, in this comedy, and we saw her being Mother Teresa throughout all the challenges of the show. That show wasn't written, and I think we can thank God that that's not the show we got.
Yeah.
It's a realistic show, isn't it?
Actually, the fact that Geraldine herself has her flaws, but is still a good person, is so important as a role model, not just for female clergy, but even just for clergy, but for everyone. And actually, it's not necessarily an archetype of a character that we see that much in TV. I think often the moral character is undermined. If we look at kind of other priests who've been recently on TV, there was the one that David Tennant played, who was a murderer, and
spoiler.
I haven't seen
the
it
posters
yet,
for it have been covered in blood. I think they know that he's the murderer.
Oh dear.
You know,
David.
I think that there's something that the narrative of fiction, there's a story they like to tell about how the moral character in the community, whether that's a priest or someone else, is actually secretly corrupt and is the antagonist of the story. But what the Vicar of Dibley managed to do is create a character who she is the moral heart of the community and of the show, and she is flawed, and she is still good, and we love her.
So I think we've enjoyed going back, haven't we? We've learnt lessons. There's been familiar things that you go back to, like an old comfy pair of slippers. There's been times that maybe we found spiders in those slippers, but we've dealt with them. And yes, so a big thank you again to all of you for listening, and our new listeners who've come along with Dawn. Thank you very much. We hope you've enjoyed the episodes that we've talked about Vicar of Dibley. And as Kate said, it's not all going away, but there are some changes happening, aren't there, Jenny?
Yeah, so that's right. So I'm going to be stepping back from the podcast with the close of this season. I want to just add to what Ruthie's saying and just say thank you so much for our amazing listeners and for all the comments and the things that you've written in for the emails. We've so enjoyed, and I've so enjoyed being a part of the podcast and talking about my favourite programme in the whole world and my favourite subject. I've loved reflecting on ministry and life and being a woman and being a priest. It's been such a joy for me and really memorable. And every time I watch back The Vicar of Dibley, I will think of you both and all of our lovely listeners. It's been such a joyful time. But yes, I will be taking a step back from the podcast and I'm going to be making room for somebody new. So I will be probably popping up every so often on the podcast, and I'm definitely going to be over-egging the feature of being able to send in voice notes and stuff to the podcast. So don't worry, you won't wholly be getting rid of me. But yeah, I need to put my time and attention elsewhere for this next season. So I really hope you have a wonderful time with your new co-host, Ruthie and Kate. Are you going to introduce him now? Or wait until he's actually here?
Well, you've given away slightly of it, but you've said he. We are...
Ooh, Jesus! It's Jesus!
Jesus is
coming
always
back.
here. It's all good. Yes, we've decided that we're adding a bloke into the mix, and it's someone that you have heard previously on the podcast. It's our friend Ross Meikle, who was on an episode with us. He tested out earlier on in an episode that we called Snog, Marry or Holy Ghost, which I absolutely loved and adored. Ross Meikle is a priest down in Reading, and it's really exciting to add him to the team because he'll have a whole different way of looking at different things, and we are losing so many things with Jenny. Like I've said it to Jenny before off air, but I'll say it here, that you are so much of the heart and joy of this, and you just bring it back to remind us about the God stuff, and you've just got so many wonderful emotions, and that sounds patronising, but it's not meant to be. So some of the heart and soul is leaving with Jenny, but we have decided to add Ross into the mix, and we hope he will add some of those things in, but of course we could never replace Jenny. It'll be a different character adding in, and so it'll be a slightly different way of doing things, because obviously we have run out of Vicar of Dibley episodes, apart from some of the comic relief ones. So we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. So if you want to go have a little listen to Ross and see what Ross is like, go listen to our Snog, Marry or Holy Ghost episode. And then in the future, soon, there'll be some other episodes coming out.
Yes, so we'll be releasing our reintroductions episode, just like we did right at the beginning. We did a mini episode called Introductions. We're doing reintroductions, and that will be a chance for you to get to know Ross a bit more. We'll also talk about what our new format's going to be like, and share a bit more about that. Then we'll have the first real episode of season 2 of the Vicars Watch Dibley. And then after that, we'll be continuing our regular pattern of releasing a new episode every 2 weeks.
Yeah!
Awesome. I can't wait. I cannot wait. I'm gonna be waiting at my phone for that 8 o'clock. Is it 8 a.m. release time?
8 a.m.
Oh my
Friday morning.
gosh. I'm gonna be up watching, waiting. Yeah, I can't wait to check out what the new format's going to be like. It's going to be brilliant.
8 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time.
Yeah, so thank you all again for this journey and listening with us. We have enjoyed doing this so much, and we wouldn't have been able to do all the things that we've been able to do with meet people like Kate Botley and Dawn and all these amazing things that we've done without you guys listening. So thank you. And we really hope you'll stick around for the new
Please
season,
stick around.
despite Jenny not being there. But...
Yeah, if you want to come and find me, by the way, you can find me on Instagram at the Vicar Today. I'll be keeping on uploading what I'm doing and ministry bits and bobs there. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be checking in with you guys as well. And yeah, really excited for the new format and so excited to hear Ross a bit more as well. You're going to have so much fun.
Yeah, so to all of you, bless you for listening.
Bless you for listening.
Bless you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Vicars Watch Dibley. Thank you to Toby for editing our ramblings.
Any views expressed in this podcast are our own and don't necessarily represent those of the Church of England or any other organisations with which we are affiliated.
And as always, bless you for listening. Because it's my last episode, I'm just going to do whatever the diddly I want. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
That means I'm going to tell you my favourite joke that we've had on the podcast. You might remember it, but I don't mind. This is my favourite joke of all time, so I'm going to tell it again. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Knock, knock.
Who's there? I know which one it's going to be. Who's at the door, Jenny? You're a poo. I knew it was going to be you're a poo.
You're a poo. Oh. Yay, thank you for humouring me.